In the past 5 years, 30 states and the District of Columbia enacted laws to decriminalize or legalize marijuana for medicinal or recreational use. A 2017 Gallup poll found that 64% of Americans believe marijuana should be legal nationwide. More and more millennials say marijuana use is their constitutional right, and the government should keep its hands off their pot. Well, here to set us straight on this is Emily Dufton. She's a historian from Washington, D.C., where pot is legal. She's author of the book Grassroots, The Rise and Fall and Rise of Marijuana in America. Ms. Dufton, thanks for joining us. So has the marijuana debate settled down a bit, or is it still a big issue of contention in our society?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. As for your question, I would say that no, the marijuana debate is very much still going on. And now we have 9 states in D.C. that have legalized. But on January 4th, Attorney General Jeff Sessions actually revoked the Obama administration's Cole memo. The Cole memo said that state legalization laws could stand. The Attorney General Sessions' sort of revocation of that suggested that there's renewed federal interest in pursuing marijuana crimes. And that means that even though more and more states are legalizing, the federal government is actually continuing to pursue and one might say punish or legislate marijuana Schedule I standing.
So I guess there'd have to be some legislation then from Congress. But some young people believe that marijuana represents more than just a product. It symbolizes individual freedom in this country. And are they taking it a bit too far with that view?
Ironically, they're actually mimicking or mirroring the same view that young people have had about marijuana since the 1960s. Beyond millennials advocating for legalization today, there's actually sort of the residual baby boomers who are still using marijuana. They're the ones who are really pushing for legalization as well. They find that using medical cannabis helps them with their problems with persistent pain or nausea or anything else, sort of the trials and tribulations of getting older. So from the very beginning, when people were emphasizing their right to access marijuana as an element of, one might even say, libertarian freedom, you see the same thing happening now with pretty much the same people who were protesting for it in the 1960s. It just continued.
Now, did you take a look back at like the 20s and 30s, 1920s and 30s, and what happened then?
Marijuana was actually being used in pretty much the 19th century. It would come in tinctures that were sold in corner pharmacies. But after the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act, an element of the progressive era, they had to be labeled. People were very aware of what was going in them, and marijuana was not as readily accessible in the sort of pharmaceutical areas anymore.
How are the attitudes of politicians different today?
Well, I think marijuana's 22-year history as a medical substance has influenced a lot of people. But unfortunately, because of marijuana's Schedule I standing, it's really hard to actually do sufficient medical research to really understand what this drug is.
Well, how should the public then be better informed on it in a fair way, especially when you look at the health risks without political influence?
It's tough, right? It's tough to find really good information. But one of the things that state legalization laws got right was that they enforce new regulations, that the marijuana you buy in dispensaries has to be free of mold, free of pesticides, free of any other sort of outside contaminants. We do need more research into what marijuana does to the human body. And in that sense, although it would take a very long time, it might not be unwise to move marijuana schedule to potentially Schedule II or III, which would increase access to it for medical research.
And of course, health risks as people smoke and inhale into their lungs. I'm sure there are greater health costs and a lot of cases of people with bronchitis and upper respiratory problems. So, Emily Dufton, I appreciate you. You're a historian and author of the latest book, Grassroots, The Rise and Fall and Rise of Marijuana in America. Very interesting to look at it from a historical perspective. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.